All right, under the sun fans, we are back at it at the art and science of coaching. It has been a while. Sorry for the 2 month lapse, but uh, myself and Coach Gregg have been getting after it and doing things. And uh, yeah, we just been active in doing what you're doing and what I'm doing, and we'll catch everyone up on our activities of late. But it's good to see you again. Good to catch up and talk because it's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Well, first off, I want to explain to the listeners what we're going to talk about as our theme today, which is we're at that point in the season when uh, everyone is ending their seasons. If you're a road racer or a mountain biker, typically, we've got marathon nationals coming up here soon. Cyclocross season is about to kick off. Of course, they're full gas right now, but this conversation is aimed more for a road rider and potentially a mountain biker who's looking ahead to 2022, and you're thinking about taking that time off the bike. And we're going to talk about how to make the decisions about when to take that time off, how long to take off, what happens to the body during that break that is beneficial, and maybe even negative, at least negative thinking that you can say, well, I'm off the bike. This is not good. I'm losing fitness. But losing fitness is good if you want to continue to make progress. And then we're going to talk about the other side when you start back training. What is the right way to get back after it? Because there's definitely a wrong way to do that. But first, we want to talk about what we've been up to. So, Zach, you've had some big changes here in the last few months. I think we should tell the listeners who may not know this, but you and I, we're not working together anymore, like
You're not.
day to day.
Yeah.
We're not. So, yeah, catch the listeners up on what you've been up to.
Yeah. So over the summer, my tenure at Lees McRae has ended. I was able to race a whole bunch during the summer. And
And I didn't let's make it clear. I didn't
yeah.
fire you. I did
Oh
not
yeah,
fire you.
no. That was totally my choice. And I think it worked out really well for both of us. I've heard a lot of really good things from the Lees McRae students about the new assistant coach. So I'm super happy for everybody that's at Lees McRae right now. And I've been following almost too closely, with how well the team is doing this fall. And it's just awesome to see how everybody's rebounded since COVID and how tough that's been and how well they're doing now. So, but since then, I was able to do a little bit of international travel and a lot of racing. And then I took my off-season break, and there were a couple reasons for that. And it allowed me to have a pretty stress-free move. I moved from Virginia out to Colorado to be closer to some friends, to be immersed in a little bit more robust cycling community. And so I'm super, super excited to be out here, well rested for the first time in probably 4 months. And really excited to get back to it. And hopefully the altitude is not going to crush me for too much longer.
You're going to be good. I think probably the happiest person out there to learn that you have moved to Boulder is probably Kerry Werner, because now you're not going to steal all his KOMs and everything else over in Roanoke.
I think I don't think Kerry ever had anything to worry about with me. He the power of the vlog, man. I mean, just Kerry's whole like magnetic persona, like, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but he moved there and I was third fiddle. Honestly, my parents are way
Got
more
kicked to the
popular than I
curb.
am, but
Got
yeah,
kicked to the curb.
Kerry is number one in Roanoke. So
And I think your brother-in-law is like a close second to him with all the things that Matt Clements, what he's doing
totally.
in his backyard. It's like for those that don't know, I mean, Roanoke is a really cool town with a lot of wonderful riding of all types, and you've got a good community there that's pretty tight knit.
It is amazing. Yeah. And it's grown so much in the last couple of years as a result of Matt Clements and of some of these really magnetic and focused people, like understanding how important it is. So I'm excited to see what those guys are going to do over the next couple of years.
Well, I got a question for you. So I've been in Boulder quite a bit myself,
Mm-hmm.
visiting friends that used to live there. I've also been in the Austin, Texas area an awful lot because of friendships that I have. And I'm curious to your take as to what it's been like for you to notice just the community and the culture that's in Boulder, because to me, Boulder and Austin are kind of similar in the people that are there, their focus, their athleticism, just the vibe that you get when you're in those towns, and the amount of athletes of all
Hmm.
types, triathletes, especially really stand out. I'm curious what your thoughts are on just being immersed, getting immersed in the community of Boulder, the changes and notices you've seen as compared to the other places that you've lived.
Yeah, I think the first thing that strikes you is the sheer volume of people recreating at all times. So that's um, it's been pretty incredible. Like I haven't been to Austin, Texas, but I compare it to Tucson, where like
Mhm. Yeah.
there's not like a 10-minute stretch on any ride you do that you don't see another person. Um, and you know, I've gone on a couple hikes, and it's like going to the mall. Like you're just there's just people everywhere recreating, and it feels like it's almost compulsory because of how on top of each other all these houses are and everything. Like people don't prioritize indoor space, they prioritize their ability to get outside and appreciate nature. So it's very much unlike anywhere I've ever experienced. I think there are a lot of places on the East Coast that had a little bit more foresight with infrastructure, could have been on similar level. But I don't know. Austin and Tucson and Boulder are kind of in their own category in the US.
I think the thing that goes along with that also is you have a lot of professionals, true professionals that live in
Mhm.
Boulder, in road and cross and triathlon. Same thing in Austin, but at the same time, there's that non-professional community that is huge. And in Boulder and I'm not sure about Tucson, but Boulder and Austin for sure have also the network of occupational opportunities that really lend themselves to our sports, and that also stands out to me as a feeder. It's like if you're in the tech industry, you go to Silicon Valley.
Mhm.
You that's because that's where the action is at. And Boulder and Austin and Tucson are similar in that if this is what you want to do. Uh, this is where you go. And now that you're there, man, I just think, boy, red blood cells, here they come.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's almost the expectation in a way, like that if you're going to be here and you're thinking about taking it seriously, that you just take it seriously, and you train at a high level, and you try and enter the community as best you can, and participate in your sport to the top of your ability. So it's cool to be here. It's definitely, I've never had like training partners aside from you, Tim. Like um
Well, I mean, you mean
yeah.
anchors
Yeah,
holding you
no,
back.
no. So yeah, I'm excited to get to work more than
That's
anything.
awesome. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
So for
man.
myself, yeah, our mountain bike season, as you mentioned a minute ago, has been full gas, and that has been a lot of fun. It's been active. We've been getting after it almost every single weekend. The kids are doing well. We've had a really good season. We're about to go to the Collegiate National Championship, and I think the last time we recorded an episode was not long before you were going to Europe to race
Mhm.
there, and we were approaching that process of getting into our team camp and season. And I was also hiring the new assistant coach, Philip Christmas, and there was just many things going on that took a higher priority for the both of us. And it's not that we weren't thinking about this, but it's, as I say all the time, first things first, and you've got to focus on those things when the time is there. But I was and have been getting messages from people who just tell me at random, "Hey, I love your episodes and enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the next one to drop." And so here we are, and
Here we are.
we have finally made it. Hopefully, we can during this late fall and early winter, maybe we can get back into a groove together and talk about some topics about all of the different disciplines of the sport. Not just road or mountain, but also throw in some cyclocross with some other people, because that is a hot topic for a lot of people I'm working with. Even though we're wrapping up our mountain bike season, we have some cyclocross racers on the team who are full gas and doing the big USCX calendar. And are looking ahead to World Cups and also Worlds in Fayetteville. So we will get into that and maybe have some guests to discuss it. So, but our topic today is that transition, that end of season transition, the break that we all need, that none of us really want to take. If your season has gone well and you've done it right, no one really wants to take the break, but you know that you have to and need to if you want to have a successful season coming up in the next year. And we want to talk about all the little things that you have to think about and decide, and then how to come out of it and start the build and the base and all the things that you need to think and do before you get into the race season. And we're starting these months of winter where it gets tough to be focused in your training. But I think it goes back to having, if you're self-coached or you have a coach, it's about, defining what it is you want to do. I think you have to first decide that. What do you want? And look ahead, not just to 2022, but where you want that to take you and set you up for 2023. We're always looking through a lens of 6 months to a year. I don't think that's long enough. I think 18 months should be the minimum that you're thinking about as you're making these decisions. So when you're making that decision of taking the break at the end of, say, 2021 or any season, you need to look ahead, I think, at least 18 months to see where you really want to go according to what you want to do, and then start making decisions now about that. So, yeah, so I guess first, like you said, you had to move from Roanoke to Boulder for your own self.
Mm-hmm.
What was the conversations you were having with your coach, the things that you talked about and thought about that led to you took a really big break this year, which I think is going to pay huge dividends next year?
Yeah, so I actually took an entire month off. And yeah, so the conversation around how long or when or things like that sometimes is pretty difficult because things are going really well and you're excited, and you look at all your friends and they're racing cyclocross and you're like, well, I should just do that for a month, and then I should do this for a month, and then it's Christmas and I don't want to not ride when it's cold. And so it can get kind of kicked down the road. For me, I had some lingering injuries, and there were only a handful of races left on the calendar. And I'm fortunate to be on a team where there's like tons of good guys that could cover those race days and do a really good job. So it was pretty obvious for me to go ahead and take a break, heal up, you know, become a little bit more mentally fresh, and take care of this move all within the span of about a month. So I think how long that break needed to be was at least 3 weeks to like get me traveled to Colorado and take care of all those things. But I'd operate much better when there's training, when there's like something every day for me to look forward to. So the last week, especially being in Boulder, was very difficult to just like continue to chill. But I think the most important thing, is to heal up. Like if you've had a physically demanding season, or you're, mentally very drained, like you need to recover from those things and be in a place where cycling is exciting. And like you actually want to dig into those goals and think about what's next, and do the little things every day that maybe take a lot of mental energy to do. So the stretching and the eating correctly and all those things, like if those are slipping at the end of a season, like you want to make sure that you have created enough mental space and excitement about riding your bike before you come back and try and tackle being an elite athlete again. So, I mean, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Well, what you said there about, I think the break is as much mentally and emotionally important as it is physically important, because we're going to talk about what happens to the body when you do take this break that's really good for you. But yes, I agree. I think the mental side of it, you need to step away from this sport. You need to step away from that level of focus you have to have, no matter what level of category that you race in. There is a specific amount of focus you have to have if you want to do well. And you should step away from it. And there should be other things in your life that are more important always, really, but especially during that break. And I like what you said about the habits, because all it takes is about 3 or 4 or 5 days, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this feels pretty good to not ride, at least for me.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you could get into some bad habits during this break that are going to be difficult to break and get back into a good rhythm once you do start. And it could be, like you said, not stretching, or maybe not doing yoga or Pilates, or maybe you start to drink a little bit too much, or your diet really tanks, or your nutrition, I should say. So you just need to, I think, you still have to be thoughtful. You still have to make good decisions, but you do have to give the mind and the body that time to step back and rest and recover and recharge. But and get that. I think it's important that I like, when I'm working with kids, especially, they never want to take a break.
No.
But I hold back on them depending upon how much racing and how many disciplines they're doing. You want to get that feeling where you're itching, where you're itching to train, and you can feel the excitement of, like, you know what? I'm ready to ride my bike because I love riding my bike. Just for that sole one thing, not because I want to have this great season next year, but I actually love my bicycle. I love riding it. And if you can get to that point of rest and recovery, and you're eager to ride your bike, not train, just eager to ride it, I think that's a good headspace to be in.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing I do, I'll ask, if we're getting towards the end of kind of a rest period, I'll ask, like, scale of 1 to 10, like, how excited would you be if you had to go ride today? And the fun thing about being a coach is sometimes I, like, listen to the scale, right? If they're like 10, like, I gotta go, that doesn't mean I'm gonna, like, let them go ride.
Nope.
It's just, you have in the back of your mind what you think they need anyway. But if it's a 3, then it's like, all right, sweet, man, I'll talk to you in a week.
Yeah.
And you appreciate the honesty, because everybody's totally different in how long. I think for both of us, like, a mandatory break would be 2 weeks, regardless of how many races they've done, how long their season was, anything. And it's that mental refresh, that reset. And then from there, it's about knowing the athlete, taking into consideration, especially this year, that 2020 kind of blended into 2021 for a lot of people.
I was thinking earlier this morning about, I know you took a break last fall.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember taking a break last fall or winter.
I
I
think
mean,
you just
maybe
busted right through. Yeah.
maybe it was like 3 days or 4 or 5 days, but I'm thinking, and I'd need to check my training peaks, but I don't think I did, which has maybe been part reason why I'm taking such a long break right now. And it doesn't bother me. I'm in the middle of, I'm probably on like week 4 or 5, and I want to ride my bike, but we just have some other priorities that are more important right now to our team and to myself as a coach. And I did ride 4 days last week, or just an hour each day. But yeah, I thought about the demands that I put on myself training with you, mostly last year and through the winter and early spring. And I got to this point and had decided for myself, now's the time to stay off the bike, because I have plenty of other things to do anyway. And then that 2 week turned into 3, and then 3 to 4. And I'm like, you know what? I have not yet reached that. I definitely want to get on my bike and ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've got plenty of time, and according to the things that I would like to do in the spring, or say next summer, if we end up getting back into not dirty, but unbound gravel,
Yeah.
that I have time. I have time to get really ready for that. So this long break, I'm okay with it. And I think, to your point, I agree about the standard 2 week break. And then it's a matter of, do you do 3 or do you do 4? And I think you're right. You have to just decide that on an individual basis, according to how much racing you did, how much volume you did, how many hours did you get out there on the bike, and also what else is going on in life. What, like
That's
you
one
said,
of the big ones. Yeah.
you moved. That's a lot of stress. You're not on the bike, but that's still a lot of stress. Me, I'm in the thick of the most important part of our season. That carries a lot of stress. I just promoted one of the biggest mountain bike races in the country this past weekend. That was a ton of stress. I
Hmm.
was still on Tuesday. My hips and my feet and everything about my body was sore beyond. It was like getting into the gym and doing, 100 reps of squats is about the equation of how that feels. And so we can never discount life stress as that affects
No.
us. And so, yeah, it's been a longer break for me when you add all those things up, and I'm okay with it. But I'm getting to that point where I'm looking ahead to November and December and January, where I want to be in February, March, April, according to then where I want to be in June. And to do that, for me, I've always thought if you're a road racer or a mountain biker who wants to race in early, in the springtime, that when you get to that, I guess deciding when to take the break, actually on the calendar, you're looking at the calendar. I've always taken the approach that, okay, when is your season likely going to kick off? How many months of base and build do you need before that to, you're not going to be at your best because you don't want to be at your best at that point.
Right.
But when is that drop dead date on the calendar the year before where you say, I've got to be on my bike by then because that's going to set me up for what I want to do following? For me, usually November 1, somewhere around the 1st of November, that's like the drop dead date.
Hmm.
And or you could push it out a week or two, but you can't go beyond Thanksgiving. I mean, I think that's pushing the
That's the
envelope
danger zone.
because you got the holidays and then you have the, you just have the month of end of November and December of so much travel and holidays and things going on that you need to establish some good routines prior to that. And so that 1st of November date for me is always the let's get going date, somewhere around there, which means you got to back up and say, at what point in October are we going to do this and for how long? Which is, I think, tough for a lot of people because October is amazing riding weather.
What's the
You know?
best? Yeah.
So yeah, it's never an easy decision,
Hmm.
but I do think you have to look at the calendar, look at what you want to do the following season, and then as a coach, you definitely have to look at how long is this base and build phase going to be? How much does the individual rider need? Some need more than others. Some respond pretty quick to the training as you get back into the rhythm, but it's different for everybody. And but that takes some thinking. And I certainly would encourage anyone who is not coached by a professional coach to get a coach to make these decisions. I think that's the one thing where a coach can, they don't have to make the decision for you, but they can provide perspective to you to say, these are the things you should be thinking about before, during, and after.
Yeah. And I think this is a great example of coaching in a lot of ways is holding an athlete back from what they think is best for them. And yeah, I mean, I always will add extra days onto an off season after people are just absolutely begging me to ride. Um, because for most people, you have more time than you think. And it's so much better to be so mentally hungry and focused going into, November 1st or whatever that restart date is. Um, it's so much better to do that than to rush it and come back and then realize 2 weeks in, oh wait, I should have taken some extra time, because then you're in this very like gray area that you don't want to be in. So and from a physiological standpoint, you really want to make sure that you're taking the time off and you're not just switching sports, right? You actually need deep rest. You want to lose some of those endurance adaptations. You want to feel like very regular by the end of this, like a regular human, somebody who doesn't exercise to the level that we do. And it's important to create that space for adaptation to training down the road. Because I think, for us, doing 10 hours a week of training or something like that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a consistent strain on your body. So, more than anything, you really just have to let loose some of those adaptations so you can, have that deep recovery and come back and create space for your training to actually, do something to your body, because you don't want to stagnate. That's the worst thing ever. If you don't take enough time off, you end up in February feeling very flat and stagnant, and it's not great.
Well, it's like the pyramid approach, you
Mhm.
know. So you got to go back down the pyramid to climb even higher on that pyramid. And I think, yeah, share with the listeners what actually happens to your body that ultimately becomes a good thing because you're going to rebuild it even bigger and deeper after. You know, what happens at the cellular level, and what happens to your mitochondria? What happens to your blood plasma? What are those things that occur when you take that break? And then we're going to talk about when we start back, you know, how to actually start back so that you are protecting those things in a healthy way so that you can build on top of what you developed the previous season.
Yeah. So in the same way that training is pushing up against homeostasis and forcing your body to adapt to things, the rest period is doing kind of the opposite. So your body's not going to hold on to a lot of the adaptations that you have created to training when you're not training. So after about 72 hours, you have a lot of degradation of enzymes related to handling carbohydrate. Your blood volume starts to return to baseline. So when you're doing a lot of endurance activity, your blood volume increases so that you have more blood available to shuttle red blood cells for oxygen, glucose through the blood to that working tissue. And then from a muscular standpoint, right, there's decrease in just plain muscle quality after about a week of inactivity. And these things are normal and beneficial in a lot of ways. Your mitochondria don't necessarily disappear, but there are enzymes in the walls of your mitochondria that decrease in total quantity. And so a lot of those are related to like your VO2 max will decline. So your ability to handle oxygen and create energy from fat will decline. So those things are totally natural, and it allows you the opportunity to build back stronger after that break. So, I don't even really want people cross training or anything for about 2 weeks. And if they're dying, then it's like go on a walk. Nothing that's really elevating your heart rate very much. You don't want to be in the gym until that 2 week mark. You just want to let your body return to baseline, because that baseline this year is going to be higher than it was last year. It's always going to come back quicker than you think it is. But losing those adaptations creates space for greater magnitude, amplitude of those adaptations in the future.
And this is where consistency over time begins
Mm-hmm.
to really pay off in this sport. Those that stick with it, who are consistent, and if you're, let's say you're a cat 2 or a cat 1 or even a pro rider, you shouldn't worry about staying off the bike for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and thinking, oh, I'm going to drop down a category or two in my ability and it's going to take forever to get that back. And this is where the sport really rewards those who take the long-term view. And you're right. Yeah, you're going to take a little bit of a step back, but that's what your body needs to take that bigger leap forward. And I agree with you. I like for people to take that extra time. Those extra few days never hurt anyone. I think the same thing could be said about injuries, is that it's never harmful to take extra days after an injury to get fully recharged, and to take it. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Do you want to take an extra 2 months? No, but you do want to take an extra few days to set your body up and your mind up for the best success. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of cyclists, when they're struggling to achieve breakthroughs at another level, it goes back to consistency, and that consistency over time, how all that development and growth and that depth that you develop over 5 years and 10 years time, that when you do take that break, like you said, when you come back, it won't take you as long to feel normal again. And not only that, but you'll break through and start to see progress and numbers on a power meter or whatever measurements you're using. You'll see that, oh wow, it's January the 10th this year. I look back at January 10th last year, and oh, my numbers are, my heart rate's lower and my power is up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's January. And you're like, Okay, now why is that? And it's because you handled it and did it the right way due to consistency. And when you started back, you didn't go back to your summer training levels and your
Yeah.
intensities. You rode slow. You developed. Uh, you gave your body the opportunity to handle the stress that you're now throwing back on it. And I think sometimes people underestimate that stress, that initial training stress when they start back, and they think in their heads, well, I should be producing the same power numbers, my heart rate should be the same, I should be able to handle the same level of hours as I did when I just took my break. And I think that is a dangerous thought, because that can set you up for some trouble.
Yeah, right. That November month is all about just very gradually introducing volume and introducing, very kind of moderate intensity, to kind of poke and prod and wake your body up, instead of, being in a hurry and jumping back into things. You're, like we talked about, a lot of the things that make you so good as a cyclist, from a recovery and training standpoint, are lost through the off season. So being very patient and careful when you come back is super important.
Well, and I think that's one of the bigger mistakes, because people, yeah, if they have that itch to ride their bike and they love it, they want to do more of it. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's definitely too much too soon. You can do it. You can definitely do it, but it goes back to that physiology you were talking about when we're talking about, mitochondrial growth, or just the development of your capillaries as you're doing this endurance training, the effect of doing too much too soon. Maybe talk about that. What actually happens to the body when you come back? What are some things that you have athletes do when they come back? Like, what is that progression of a or any category rider? Like,
Mhm.
what would that hour load, or whatever it might be for that week? And then what actually happens within the body as you're doing that?
Yeah, I think, kind of the easiest way to do it would be, let's say your average hours per week last year is 15 hours. This is like a pretty serious cyclist. They average 15 hours a week of training. So you would start them at like 9, and then go to 11, and then 13, and then 15. And if they, if they're just really dying, you're like, hey man, like, you're riding your bike, that's good enough. Because you want to work up to what they're used to over the course of a month. Sprinkle in a little tiny bit of moderate training in there to give them a little bit of a bump. um, but you want to allow them to adapt to all the training. So if you are self-coach, you don't listen to your coach, and you go out and do that 5-hour ride, it is infinitely more stressful to your body than you realize, because your body's not used to handling it. It can cause kind of suppression in your immune system. You're not necessarily going to respond to the ride from like a adaptation standpoint. It's not going to do anything good for you. It's going to beat you up. It's going to put you in a place where you're pretty vulnerable to getting sick or injured or things like that. And that is like the classic young person ride too. So it's, I know you especially hold your breath all November. It's like, please don't go do 5 hours.
Yeah, or even 3 hours that
Even
first
3 hours.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, your rides are going to be really simple, 1 to 2 hours, and it's going to include, after a few days of getting your legs underneath you, hey, some pedaling cadence drills, and just some simple endurance riding for 2 hours, and you shut it down and
Mhm.
you take that slow approach, and if you do it, you'll come out on the other side really well. And yeah, don't worry about how low your power is. Don't worry about that low average speed. It's going to get there. And for the most part, most people are pretty good about that. But sometimes they can get carried away, and it's frustrating as a coach when that happens, because the effect that it has. And but it's you can't. Sometimes it's a good sign when they're that enthusiastic to ride, but helping the athlete understand that's not what you need. That's not what you need right now. Down the road, yes, but as you said, it's doing more harm than good, because there's no real gain coming from long rides early in your base phase.
Yeah. And I typically try and keep athletes pretty busy with other things other than just pure riding during this time. So, we probably spend an entire podcast on gym and all that stuff that kind of comes with typical base training. But this is the time I like to do kind of a season review, work on goals. I know you're awesome at goals and mindset and all those things during this time. But I don't like using the break for those things. I want to totally disconnect from cycling ambition and all that focus that we require for 11 months out of the year. So those first couple of weeks back, I kind of give them the opportunity to start thinking about goals and looking at schedules and things. And that way, by the time that they're back to normal training on, let's say, December 1st, they are amped, and those goals are right in front of them. And as the weather is changing, they don't care because they've got, things that they need to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Yeah. Just go do other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, read a book, go to the movies, catch up on relationships with people that you've neglected the previous 6 to 12 months, and yeah, go back to just really what are the more important things in life, uh, and focus on those during that time, and take your mind off of the sport. It's not going to pay any dividends by putting a lot of concentration. You or I, we're going to be thinking about it because we're coaches, even though we're athletes as well. We're going to be thinking about it, but we're going to be thinking about other people and not ourselves. And so I do think, I would even say that during the season, you should have other interests that you use to take your mind away from this sport. Books do that for me. Um, Occasional hiking does that for me in the season. And I think it's important that as an athlete, no matter what sport you play, you have to have another outlet. You cannot be consumed 24 hours a day, every day, thinking about how can I get better? What do I need to do? Or how am I going to solve this problem that persists and overcome it? You have to have another mental outlet that will take you away from it so that when you come to it, you're fresh.
Mhm.
And the more fresh you can be mentally, it will energize you physically, and you're going to be able to tackle that workout, or say that next block of training, because you have this other outlet. And I think a lot of kids and adults, when they don't have that other outlet, be it whatever activity it is, or family, or whatever, or their job, or whatever, when they don't have that, it gets really difficult to make the little stepping stone progressions that you need, because you're just thinking about it too much.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, yeah, I think, and this might be, especially when it gets really difficult, like you said, the cracks start to show. And if you don't have another outlet, and cycling is the only thing that you're doing, it gets very difficult to persevere and just stick to it, because in endurance sport, when things go bad, they go really bad, and they stay that way for several weeks. And if that's, your whole life, then man, it's very difficult to just ride that wave and be patient. Where, yeah, if you have something else you can focus on while you're just waiting for things to improve, I think it makes a big difference.
Well, a good example, well, I'll speak personally,
Hmm.
of the years where I go back into my younger years, my best years that I had, of the ones that were really truly awesome for me. At the same time, I can pinpoint other things in my life where, when I was practicing and playing, I was 100% focused on those things. But the moment I left the clubhouse and I was going to do something else, then that thing, whether it was reading or a relationship, or something, I wasn't thinking about the game.
Hmm.
I had that other thing, and it really helped me, come back and fresh, and tackle it. It's a weird cycle how, if you do that, you'll have more success and you'll feel better about what you're doing. And the converse is true too, where if you don't have something else, you're just focused too much on it, and you're too serious about it. Sometimes we can just flat out just be way too serious about this, and it will negatively affect our performance over the course of time. And I think that's a skill. That is a skill. But it was interesting. I just saw in the news the other day, or I just saw a post randomly from a top professional road cyclist who I think a lot of people out there have heard. I think his name Tim DeClerc with
Hmm.
DeCoonick. He just received his master's in like kinesiology.
Hmm.
Just just graduated. Now this guy is the best at what he does of sitting on front of a peloton. Imagine the hours he's training, the number of races he does, and right after the season, he's posting that I just graduated from college with a master's degree, and I'm thinking, how did you do that? Like,
Yeah.
what all went into that progression to get to that point where in the middle of doing what he does at the highest level, he also did that. I would love to know that story because I think it could be a great lesson for everyone else that it's how important it is to have something else that you turn your attention to because it can pay huge dividends, not just in that other thing, but the thing you love to do the most as an athlete.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think it took him a couple extra years, but no, it's super impressive what he was able to do. And you look around the peloton. I mean, those guys are the absolute masters of flipping the switch off whenever they get the chance. They're super sports fans of other sports. They're, a lot of them are very highly educated. So yeah, having something else, it's all about giving your full attention to whatever is right in front of you at that time. So it can't always be cycling because you can't give full attention to cycling 24 hours a day or you'll just have a bad time. So
Well, no, and I think maybe as you're really submersing yourself into the profession of coaching, hopefully you're being able to learn that yourself just as a
mhm.
coach. That man, there's days I can go for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time where it's like you just full gas without really taking a moment for yourself as a person. But I'll hit that day. That day will come. Usually it's like a Monday or a Tuesday after a big weekend, and I'll wake up and it's like, nope, nope,
Yeah.
not today. I got to stop. And we all get to that point, and the goal would be, maybe not get that far with it sometimes, but yeah, it is. You have to have that other thing, I think, and it's just going to make you that much better in the sport that you love, no matter what that is. And so, um, yeah, what else is it that when you're thinking about taking the break or during the break or starting back training, what else should we cover with that? What else stands out to you?
Um, hmm.
I think we covered a
Yeah.
lot of it.
I think we covered a lot. Do you have anything that's front of mind?
Well, I think back to your point about we can talk briefly a little bit about how to introduce that strength training, which you and I both believe in, when you should do it, how often you should do it, not necessarily what to do, but just the thought process of, just like starting back training, when is the right time to introduce that stimulus? Because you're going to be introducing a lot of stimulus to not just your energy systems, but your muscular skeletal structure. And how's the best way to go about introducing strength training, the
Mhm.
frequency, and just like the progression on the bike, you don't want to go into the gym and just start hammering and pushing and pulling a lot of heavy weight.
Right. Yeah. So I always start with some very like basic functional strength in the weeks that are right after the off season. So I like kicking off the gym with the riding because I feel like you have to adapt to both. So you can do a little bit of both. It's super entertaining. You've got lots of stuff on your calendar to start because you've got this big excitement to get back. And so for me, it kind of depends on the athlete and their training age in the gym, which for a lot of athletes is not very old.
So
There's
for cyclists, I've learned that they're not very gym savvy. Not
no.
just they lack the experience in the gym. You and I have it because of our previous sport backgrounds, and our comfort level of going to the gym is pretty high. But I learned early in my coaching career that most cyclists are actually very timid,
Mhm.
in some cases scared, and that's where having a true strength and conditioning coach, a professional trainer to help with that can really get you over that mental concern that you might have to do things the right way. And also another aspect of gym and strength training that I have witnessed is a lot of cyclists don't understand or have any concept at all of gym etiquette. The, the
Yeah.
etiquette of, you know what I'm talking about? Like
Hmm.
the etiquette of gym, that world is different in that there is a way that you do things that others in that gym are going to expect you to know. And if you don't know, you will definitely stand out like a sore thumb. And in fact, someone's probably going to say something to you that you're not going to like because
Hmm.
they know that you're about to hurt yourself or hurt someone else, or it's just unacceptable.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully they're saving you from bad form and not you not wiping down your machines or something. Um, but yeah, if ever possible, yeah, working with a strength and conditioning professional is preferred. I always do functional movement screenings with athletes um, because every off season is different, and there are going to be things that you retain a lot of strength on and you're good at, and then there's going to be a lot of things that you're not. So for myself, for example, I got into cycling because I had this really bad ankle injury. So my right leg stability is always very poor coming back. So I spend a lot of time doing specific single leg work, which I think everybody should do, but stability, strengthening basically the ankle all the way up into the glute and the low back, posterior chain. And so that work is very important for me before I do any kind of high volume training. So I've done it very well the last 2 years. In the previous years, I did not, and I got a knee injury. So knowing those things and being very aware of what you need to work on to become just like a well-rounded functioning human takes precedent over pushing X amount of weight for me. And that first like functional, very lightweight segment of training can last up to a month, just depending on soreness and what the athlete is doing. Whether they're sore or whatever. Sorry, I'm rambling, but
Oh, well, I think to your point, it's muscular skeletal balance
Mhm.
is more important to our sport than most cyclists give credit to. And not only that, I'd go so far as to say having a strength maintenance program during your competitive season. My best seasons in all sports, be it baseball or cycling, is when I had a maintenance program of just one day a week. How much of a difference that can help you throughout a season to not get stronger, but to maintain that balance that you need muscularly and skeletally to perform. Not to mention how it will help you help prevent some injuries. It'll help you sustain some crashes. It'll help you get through the tough moments physically. I also believe this is something I've loved to watch over the years is bringing people into the gym who are uncomfortable, just unfamiliar, and especially if you can do it in a group, and then watch how they evolve over the
Mhm.
months of being in the gym and doing the work, and how they go from being timid and shy and just not diving in head first to all of a sudden what happens is their confidence level goes through the roof. They see the changes that happen to their body, their range of motion, their stability, their strength, how that evolves because the periodization process in the gym is very similar to on the bike as
Mhm.
to how you're going to progress that. And I love seeing how much more confident, especially young people, are 3, 4, 6 months in, where all of a sudden they're asking you, hey, when are we getting in the gym? Why are we not in the
Yeah.
gym? I want to get into the gym. And that's when you know that it's starting to click, that they see long term, well, yeah, that's why we do it, because I feel better. I'm not only feel better, I'm so much more confident about myself and what I can do. Not only that, but I know my body better. They have a
Mhm.
better understanding of their body because of that process.
Yeah, I think a couple months of strength training, you really start to notice the benefits related to time to exhaustion, in your efforts on the bike, and just overall stability and strength, and like a deep level of fitness where late into a race you're not turning into a wet noodle. You have a foundation to press against, and yeah, it becomes really motivating and exciting. um
And yeah, and I mean, it's not all about lactate profile and
no.
VO2. That is a huge part of endurance sports, no question about it. But and I know that there's coaches out there who don't prescribe strength training or believe in it, but I do. I've seen it firsthand, where the changes that can occur in people of all ages and sizes, and so yeah, this sport, it takes many different aspects to be successful and to grow. And as we go back and talking about rest periods, strength training can play an important role to help you, you know, hit these different levels and then get to the next level. It is an extra thing that you can do that's going to reap some benefits for you.
Totally. And what we're going to end up talking about more and more over the years is fatigue resistance.
Mhm.
And if you're not in the gym, you're missing a key part of becoming more fatigue resistant.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
one of
that
the
can be as,
questions, go ahead.
okay.
Well, I was going to say, you and I, even you've heard me say after races, and this is something that I talk about a lot with our athletes, is one, after races are over, and whatever outcome it is, no matter if it was successful or unsuccessful, I'll ask the athletes, how much did you have in the tank at the end? Was it empty, or did you have some gas to give it there at the end? And then whatever that answer is, we start to ask more questions like, what do you think contributed to that? Why did you have the gas? Why did you not? And this sport, everybody is awesome in the first hour.
They are.
Everyone, and in some disciplines for 90 minutes, they're awesome. But who's going to be awesome at hour 3? Who's going to be awesome at the end of the race when it's most important? To your point about resistance to fatigue, that's what it's all about. And each of these disciplines that we race, whether it's a pursuit on the track, whether it is a cyclocross race and you're on the final lap, it doesn't matter. Think about that final stretch of racing, be it the 10K in a road race, a sprint at the end. It doesn't boil down necessarily to who is the strongest. It does, but who is the freshest? Who has that extra gear of strength and endurance to finish it off? And this rest period plays into that, strength training plays into that, and the whole goal, to your point, yes, is resistance to fatigue over time. And how that changes as you progress through categories, it's an element that is going to feed into your success. Because if you don't have very good resistance to fatigue, I mean, we talk about sprinters. Some sprinters can drag race for 30 seconds at a high rate, and others, they've got about 5 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to wait, sprint for 5 seconds, and that's all they have. And that is an element of resistance to fatigue.
Yeah, it's a great parallel. It's the guy who slows down the least is probably going to have the most successful race. And the same goes for the season. If you're running on fumes at the time, June or July, like that's nationals time. Those are big events. And you don't want to be in that place where you're just begging your body for one more good session to get to the next big race. You want to be in a position where you have waited, and it is about putting together 3 or 4 or 5 months of good training so that you can have 3 or 4 or 5 months of really successful racing with some breaks in between. So yeah, I like that parallel, because you really want to be patient as long as you can with that mental energy and that high level of focus, so that you can expend it when it counts and you can be there 100% for the races that matter the most to you.
Yeah. And again, I think this is another good opportunity where a professional coach can help you decide that for yourself. One, you can look at numbers, but two, it's a lot of times just having a conversation about, what were all the decisions that you made? What were the actions you took or did not take that would have helped you have more in the tank at the end? And that's something I think everyone should ask themselves, because on training rides too, when you get down with a training ride, were you wasted? You shouldn't be wasted.
Right.
There should be special moments in training where you're wasted. And that'll be a purposeful workout that your coach put in your plan. That shouldn't be a common theme when you're training. You shouldn't be wasted after training. You shouldn't be wasted the next day if you did everything the right way. Same thing in racing. There's only special moments where afterward you want to be completely wasted.
Totally.
And otherwise you need a little bit left in the tank. And so, but that feeds into the rest period. That feeds into proper training when you're getting back into the rhythm of starting your base and build. And all this stuff matters. And so when you're in June or July and you're like, why is this happening to me? Well, let's go back in time. Did we make the best decisions that were going to set you up for success down the road back then? Yes or no? And so I think that's where having a coach can help you with asking the questions, getting the answers, providing perspective, and doing your best to set you up for success down the road. Because it's pretty easy to make a good decision in the moment, but being able to project that and forecast why that good decision is going to pay off or why that bad decision won't, that's where perspective of a coach can really help you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Individual athletes are almost too close to their own training a lot of times, where you do need someone who has that perspective and can take a step back and say, this is the right decision for now and for 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. All right, man. Well, I think we have covered a lot of ground here, and we're only 55 minutes into the episode. I think
This is a record.
This is awesome. All right, man. Well, I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone out there listening enjoyed this conversation. I'm out of pocket for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to Durango, Colorado, and so I will not have the opportunity to do any more recordings until I get back. But you and we're going to make this get back into a rhythm and have some more topics that we can share on the art and science of coaching. So be thinking about some stuff for us to talk about.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, enjoyed this. I'm glad we're back on track here.
Yeah, plus some Boulder stories. I missed that place. So
oh man, I'm sure there are going to be plenty.
All right. Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. Share this episode with your friends who may benefit and enjoy it. Till next time, peace out.
See ya.
Yeah, man, that was good.